Welcome to the Power of Integrity podcast, where leadership aligns with principles. I'm Ralph Adamo, your host, and I'm delighted to have Mark Percy. Mark is the CEO of CEO Leadership Alliance, Orange County, a wonderful organization. Mark has been around philanthropic endeavors all his life. He's been around corporate enterprise, and he's just got a fantastic story, and he's a man of integrity and a man of his word. Mark Percy, welcome.
Thank you, Ralph. Great to be with you and great to be on this show. And I commend you for, raising this issue. It's an important one and just wonderful to be with you.
Yes, absolutely wonderful. And we share some common ground together, but would you tell our audience a little about your personal professional journey, including anything that you think might be important for our audience to know about you and maybe even
Sure.
our common ground?
Sure. Well, let me start on the common ground because it was, I guess, in the early 2010s that you and I met, and you were coming very successful wealth management firm. I was transitioning to kind of another career helping families with their family philanthropy. And I think that you were the one that actually brought back to Orange County. You were part of a national organization called Advisors in Philanthropy. And I had never heard of it, but somehow we met. And the whole idea, I think, captured my attention because I think wealth management was going through a transition at that time, wealth advisory, and people were looking more at a team approach. And it was way beyond just, getting the best return on your portfolio in terms of the goal from your side. From my side, philanthropic advisory, it was much more than just, checking a box that you're going to get a tax deduction. It was really so looking at sort of broadening the definition of success. And I think you became very involved on the board of the national organization, which actually had no local chapters at the time. And Ralph, to your credit, you kind of, beat the drum for why don't we start a chapter here in Orange County? And I think Bob Greenberg and myself were kind of early converts to that idea. And we took turns. Bob was the first president. You were the second. I was the third, if I remember correctly. But it was a great, something that we were passionate about. It was something kind of bigger than ourselves. And I think for both of us, it was kind of a legacy. The organization is still going strong in Orange County, and Richard Ward has been spearheading a lot of it and is performing a great role in the community of just, kind of looking at the wealthy families and how they can invest in Orange County more effectively. So anyway, that was the beginning of our journey. Pivoting to the personal side, how did I get into that? I actually was born in Chicago and then moved to Washington D.C. Really grew up there, through high school, and ended up marrying my wife, having two children, coming back to D.C. and spending 20 years really raising them in the city. So that was a more what I would call a traditional business career. I worked very closely with my father during those years. He was in his third career. He was in business and politics, and he was then in a kind of new phase of his life. And I was the last of five children. And so he was very busy with his career when I was young. And the opportunity came up after I had gone to graduate school and was on the West Coast. And we started talking about doing something together, which, kind of was a family business. It wasn't any assets. It was just us. It was just, international investment trade consulting out of Washington. In short, it was helping U.S. companies break into emerging markets. And so that was a fantastic experience. I was with him for a decade. And going to the topic today, he was, we learned a lot of our lessons, I think, oftentimes, if we're lucky, from our family. And my father was an incredible man, well respected, and lived out those integrity ideals. He was known for it. And so to have the opportunity young in my career, to really spend concentrated time as an adult working with him and to see how we navigate issues. And It was just an incredible, kind of a master's class in this topic of integrity. So then he retired, and I transitioned to the West Coast, where my mother was originally from. My wife was from California, and we came back. And in 2005, I really needed a new chapter in my life. And this is what I talk about, reinventing myself. So, went into this philanthropic advisor using business background for, venture philanthropy and some of the new trends that were happening. Was very lucky to work with some wonderful families, the K Family Foundation, Sun Family Foundation, and others, and so learned a lot about Orange County. And then 6 years ago, really switched from that to the nonprofit sector, leading this organization, CEO Leadership Alliance Orange County, which was kind of a perfect blend of my background, and then having a chance to do this with top business leaders, looking at bettering the future of Orange County has been the venture of a lifetime for me. It's been such a wonderful, and mainly working with people of very high character and leadership. So it's been a privilege.
Yeah, Mark, maybe for folks who don't know about your organization, CLA, would you kind of tell us a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of what goes on with that organization?
Yeah, and it was really co-founded about 7-8 years ago by Dick Gocknauer and Doug Wilson. Two great leaders here in Orange County. And what they noticed is the CEOs weren't meeting together, didn't know each other in Orange County. And CEOs typically in regions, are really such a critical part of the civic life of a region and the benefit for the region. So they started meeting together. It took a long time to get the right people around. And it really came out of Dick and Doug's conviction around purposeful leadership. So they had worked together. The Center for Higher Ambition Leadership came out of Harvard Business School. And the idea is that, again, broadening the definition of success. Success for a CEO is not just running a successful company, as hard as that is, but really purposeful leaders take it a step farther, both in their company life and in their personal life, because they have a commitment to not only their employees, but also where their employees live, the communities that they live in. So that was the idea, and that has driven, that's been part of the DNA of CLA ever since it was founded, that you get some of the best CEOs together, but also CEOs that care about the community and view something as a higher purpose and sort of a movement bigger than themselves. And so what the organization has done is really those business leaders coming together and looking at the long-term issues in Orange County and what can we do together that we can't do alone. So many of the organizations have their own foundations, but they weren't working together. They didn't know each other. There wasn't a community of business leadership in these issues. And so, long story short, we have really focused early on a lot in the area of talent development and retention, because as you know, there's kind of two Orange counties. There's the have-nots, and there is a scenario, if we play it out, that Orange County could literally become a retirement community like Palm Beach or Hawaii. And we're kind of on our way to doing that unless we find a way to supercharge, innovation, economic growth, higher paying jobs. And so the place where CLA thought, there's Octane, there's Beal, there's lots of other organizations, but the area where there was a dearth of action was in this area of connecting the education world and the business world in a more effective way that didn't have this leaky talent pipeline. And so that's what the organization set about to address. And what makes it CLA different is not just the issue they took on, but also how they do it in terms of purposeful impact and, working together, and systems change. So it's really, business leaders are very unique in terms of their skill set. They like a clear vision. They like long term results, but they like short term action. Leading up to those results. They like a good strategy. And so, if you get the business leaders in a community working together, they can be an incredible force for good. And so I'm just privileged to be part of this. And I see the vision of CLA as decades in the future, the organization will have a huge impact on the future of Orange County and the benefit of Orange County.
Fantastic work you're doing there, and purpose and intentional for sure. Um, Mark, when you turn your attention, oh, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Jeff Swanson, one of our colleagues at the time, and the Orange County Community Foundation that was very supportive in anchoring the launch of OCAIP, or the Orange County Chapter of Advisors in Philanthropy, because they were really instrumental. They kind of put us on the map, took us under their wing, allowed us to formulate our plans, work in their conference facilities. And so Orange County Community Foundation does have a lot of credit to the launch of that first chapter, and it's the first chapter in the country. And as you said, it's still going strong under their tutelage and leadership.
Yeah, I was Shelley Haas was one of the first that offered to have a roundtable, and OCCF has been such a blessing to our community, and has been at the forefront of so many of the good initiatives that have occurred.
Yes, absolutely. And their names like, was it Susan Samueli that spoke? We had a lot of bright people come in, and Wes from Orangewood, and boy, there was a lot of interesting.
There was an energy, and there was a willingness to learn, and to learn from each other, and to share best practices. That again didn't exist in Orange County, so I think it was very significant, and it's not dissimilar to kind of what CLA is all about. Also, it's a learning community. It's a community of practice, and in fact, our founder Doug Wilson went off, and we incubated a national talent collaborative. So CEO groups, we would call Minneapolis, we would call Chicago, what are you guys doing, in terms of CEO groups? And we were learning from them. And Doug, was the one who said, why don't we do this more intentionally? And so now twice a year for the last 3 years, the first one was in Laguna Beach at the ranch, but we've had Cleveland and New York, and Jamie Dimon hosted us. And it's been an amazing process of this learning community of CEO groups across the country, mainly focused on talent development, because it's a national issue. We have this leaky talent pipeline, and we just need more opportunities for especially lower income, those without social networks. How do you get into higher paying jobs? It's really the opportunity that needs to be presented, and that's what's missing. And a good job solves a host of social problems. It can change a family, it can change a community. So, we think it's one of those root issues. If you get it right, and it's a civil rights issue in America, if we can really solve this, how do you connect, and have more opportunities for young people that, maybe graduated from high school but need some upskilling, maybe go to a community college, but unless they get some sort of mentoring, they're not going to go into 4-year university. And now we have still 40%, 50% of our BA graduates that are underemployed. They get jobs that don't even require BA. So we have a system that works in terms of the definition of success. Getting a BA and getting a job that requires a BA, that's 12% of our young people. So if you have 100 ninth graders, by the end of the talent pipeline, 12 of them have been successful by going through the system the way it's designed. We have to rethink the whole thing. And our education partners are all on top of this. They are, very keen to collaborate with businesses, because businesses are the end of the talent pipeline. And you almost have to reverse engineer it. You can't build a bridge to nowhere. You have to reverse engineer it for what the businesses need. And that's what we're in the middle of right now.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, if the educational community is focusing in on, boy, the product we're turning out has to be a product that the ultimate users want, being, the employers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. So, turning our attention to the topic of our podcast, integrity. Your father was a big influence, but his complexion and yours that you've learned over the years. How do you define and what does the word integrity mean to you, Mark?
Well, I think it goes to the bottom of so many issues, and it's so core to character development. But in my mind, it's a alignment between what you think, what you say, and what you do, and in the simplest terms. But that's not simple to actuate in life. It really, you have to, find, your kind of true north, because you can do all that alignment and have, kind of a wrong motivation and be a train wreck as a person. So I think that I think young in your life, you hopefully learn from family or uncles or friends, mainly family influence. But I think that later in life, really cultivating the right friends is really, really important. Friends that are based on character, that you can find sort of a common interest with, and truth, search for truth with. And then, as we know, friends that, are there for you and that you're there for them, and that can be honest and emotionally connected to you. And I think that our popular culture, every movie is about romance, love, or it's about family, but that's a biological, social. Undervalued is friendship. And what I've seen is so many leaders go through life, and the pinnacle gets very narrow at the top, and their time management becomes more acute. And unfortunately, what is squeezed out a lot is our true friends that can speak truth into situations. And when you're off, when you're off base, when you face a dilemma, when you want to talk it through, you don't have people that are really, that understand you and the journey that you've had, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think part of integrity is really dealing with all of us, in terms of every aspect of ourselves, not just the good. What's the story we tell ourselves, and is it truthful? I mean, have we really learned from our tough experiences? So I'll give you an example. I mean, when you asked me to be on this show, I sort of said, okay, I thought to myself, okay, what are some, where were some of the milestones in my life? And I think one story I can share that really stands out in my mind as a dividing point on this issue of integrity was when I joined my father's firm, and we worked for the first 5 years, helping U.S. companies break into emerging markets. And it was really, he was vital, and he developed dementia later in life. But the first 5 years of the company, it was really his company. It was his vision. But I saw, the longer I worked with him, and I loved it. It was a great experience. We would do big technology systems, air traffic control systems, GSM, cellular infrastructure with Motorola, companies like that. It was an amazing experience. But there was an avenue of the business that I sort of saw that could become more mine as he headed toward retirement. And he, with his blessing and his encouragement, I began to build out that business line. And it was exciting. It was new. It was cutting edge. We were working with companies on, kind of cutting edge things they were doing in emerging markets. We were working with governments at a very high level. And so there was, we were building this out. We were investing in it. We were beginning to get good revenue return. And in the process, we hired some. We realized we needed someone with more policy senior chops, to really run this thing. So we brought someone in that was very highly recommended to us, and at first it worked marvelously. He took it to a whole nother level, and this business line. Well, long story short, again, what happened was one day I was going through some documents, and I saw that there was not everything was as it appeared. He had been in short cut corners. There was representations he was making that were not accurate, um, at the very least unethical. And so, luckily, I had a very good friend. We were on K Street in Washington D.C., and we were subletting from a law firm. And two floors up was one of my best friends who ran international for this law firm. So I called him and said quickly what was going on. He quickly dropped everything. And we spent the next 2 hours kind of, he unpacking all this with me and kind of working through it. And again, by within 24 hours, that individual who had done these things was gone from the company. We had fired him. My father, of course, we brought this to him. He completely backed it up. So, and of course, I was devastated. This was going to be my future, what something I could kind of own and build on my own. And money had been invested, so I had all these ideas that I had let my father down. I had left him as an investor down. How could I have hired someone, with these kind of character traits? You go through all sorts of, sort of questioning. But in the end, it was very clear, and it was financially costly. It was the next couple of years were really tough because of that, but it was the right decision to do. And I think all these ideas of integrity are theoretical until the rubber hits the road and you actually face a situation like that where you have to trade off. You have to say, I am going to be a man of integrity, and I am going to draw my plumb line here. And once you do that, then everything else becomes easier after that because you've already done it in a very high stakes situation. So, again, for me, and going back to this issue of friendship, that individual who helped me through that decision ultimately became part of a group of 7 guys, myself including, and this other friend. But there was another lawyer at the law firm that had joined us. But over the course of 2 years, 7 of us came together and we started meeting weekly together. And we started to invest in each other's lives. And there was more transparency and honesty. And to this day, we're still meeting every Friday morning. We've kind of scattered, but we have a phone call, 6:00 a.m. Friday morning, 9:00 East Coast. But and not all of us can make it all the time, but we all make it a priority. And there's always about 4 or 5. Every now and then there's 6 or 7 of us. But it's a weekly check-in, in terms of how our lives are really going, and how the things we think and the things we believe and say and do they all line up? Do they all, and to have a group of guys like that we've kind of gone through 38 years. We've gone through deaths, we've gone through joys, celebrations, weddings, career craterings and incredible victories. It's someone to have a group of guys like that know you, that you can take to anything in terms of why and receive wise counsel in a context of your entire life. That is something that I think is missing today in society. And I think that if I were to give advice to young people in terms of how you start on a path toward integrity, I would say, be very careful about the friends you choose. Be very careful about cultivating those with the highest character and the highest quality. And if you are successful in bringing a few people like that around you in your life, you will be rich as an individual, and you will, I think, end up, in a situation where you we all want to live to our highest purpose and our best ideals. And that's really what integrity is all about. It's really discovering that for ourselves, helping others, but including character and integrity into our lives and into society for whoever is put in front of you, and to have hopefully an influence along that line. But again, I commend you for the topic because it's such an important topic.
Well, you're stating it so well. I heard you say a few things, one of which was integrity essentially is easy until the stakes are high. And
Yeah.
when the stakes are high, and when the stakes are high, all of a sudden everything after that, if we can make the right decision in the face of some difficult choices, and we can make that right decision from that point forward, all of a sudden it's pretty simple as to when doing the right thing all the time.
Yeah, I think that's the question. What's our true north? And we're all given a sense of conscience, and we have a sense of what's right and wrong, uh, according to kind of moral laws in the universe. But we can easily squelch that, and just every single decision we make, leads us, farther away or closer to our true self. And so the more we can kind of be sensitive to that in our own self and then help others, I think we can really end up with a way more meaningful life than we would if we just pursued kind of, narrow self interest. So.
Yeah. And you reminded our audience, and of course, the commitment you've made over the years of investing the time once a week with those friends that you have, because I'm sure they are deep friendships.
Yeah.
It's probably not just a phone call you spend with them. I'm sure you spend a lot of other things with them in terms of
Well,
time.
we actually we get together once a year, someplace physically. We'll go across to a nice place, and we will have 4 or 5 days, and we take actually intentionally the seven of us. We'll fish and golf, and we'll spend some time kind of hanging out together. But the most important time is a chance to really spend concentrated time in person. So we'll have each person over the course of 3 days, and everyone spends about, it can be anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, where we kind of lay out the deeper issues, and then the questions are very intentional, very thoughtful, with this wonderful perspective of, kind of a whole group of guys that know you. And so they know what the issues are and what you're battling with. And you come away with just like the other time, one of the friends said something like, to help us through issues of temptation or whatever. And he said, one thing that's helped me is just remind myself that's not who I am. And just, that was like 2 years ago, and it stays with me almost every day when I face decisions. You know, am I making a decision that is true to who I really am and who my true self is, or am I, kind of kidding myself and telling a story to myself? And really going away from that ideal, highest purpose for me as an individual. So it's just one example, but it's just wonderful to have a group of guys like that. And again, it's just it is something that forge and to grow and to keep friends. Those are all kind of things you have to do intentionally, but the payoff and the reward in terms of this topic of integrity is just kind of off the charts. It's just something I think I can share from experience, that it's been a learning that I have had in life that I think is probably one of the few genuine piece of advice that I've tested and I know for sure works. So.
Yes. When you meet someone of character, you're willing to bring them into your sphere. When you meet someone of character, you're willing to hand off uh, almost anything, whether it's a project, whether it's your wallet. People of character always court other people of character, and you said it meaningfully. Is be careful who your friends are when you're talking to the younger folks, and that kind of transitions where I like to go with my next question, Mark. You've been around a long time. You've been around a lot of bright people, a lot of capable people, and you've done that thoughtfully and intentionally. But when you talk to our younger audience and you have some thoughts about not just who the friends they have around, what other things would you share as you learned in your path and your journey that you would share with the young folks starting out?
I think one of the things that the surveys show this generation is more and more focused on not only security, but also making money. And I totally get it, kind of coming out of, some of the pandemic and other things. But, if you go back to those surveys in the 60s and 70s, the top issue was coming up with a coherent philosophy of life, and money was down the list. Back in the 60s and 70s, and I think that there's the one piece of advice I would give is to you know um, not be quite as worried about every step being the right step, the perfect step. You learn a lot from just moving forward. And, it may not be the perfect area, but the lessons you learn in terms of hard work and showing up on time, some of those basic things can be learned in any setting. It's very important to learn what doesn't work for you. Usually it's not that you're stupid or you're not qualified. It's just the fit isn't right oftentimes, and that's okay. So and it's just again the chance to learn from our mistakes. It's important to cultivate a growth mindset. A fixed mindset, you got to be good at everything, and you don't like to try new things. But there was a good book called Mindset by a Stanford philosopher or psychology professor that kind of laid out these two mindsets. And the good news is that if you're a fixed mindset person, you can grow into a growth mindset person. But that's a person that really looks at everything as an opportunity. Everything is a growth opportunity. You can learn from anything, you can better yourself from anything if you just have the right attitude and you come away with lessons that you can then put to work elsewhere. And I think that's a really important lesson early in your career because it takes a while to figure out. It's taken me. This is my best job so far, and I'm in my sixth decade of life. So just call me a late bloomer maybe, but I think you got to be easy on yourself and realize that everyone's journey is different, and there is no one right way of doing any of this. But I think that the young people today are moving into a world. We see it in the job market. It is moving so fast, and the evolution of technology and AI is changing everything. So I think that I talked to a young person at one of our events last night, and I was sharing with her that I've reinvented myself 3 times. I said, from what she had told me, I said, you're probably going to reinvent yourself 8 or 10 times, by the time you're my age. So, and don't worry about it. It's just, have that growth mindset. And anyway, that's a little bit.
No, that's good insight. Having a growth mindset allows you to pivot easily. I think about a target guided missile. It does not work from positive feedback. It works from negative. If it's off target, it realigns.
Yeah.
And you're right. Sometimes stepping out to find out what we're good at and what we're not good at gives us the information as to how to hone in on and zero in on what's important to us. Right?
Yes, I would also add that, again, a lot of young people look at the perfect career path or area they want to go into, but there's a lot to be said. Some jobs I've had, I've really taken because of the quality of the leader. And it wasn't necessarily for 4 years. I ran the government sales of a Fortune 500 company that made building materials. And my wife will tell you I'm the least handy person around the house, so it was sort of a joke. But the guy who ran the company was such an outstanding individual. I had gotten to know him in Washington D.C., and he kind of brought me in to this. And so again, the quality of the leader of the organization, everything emanates from the top. And again, that's why we are so careful in terms of who we pick to come into CLA. But when you get a group of leaders that are not only smart business people, but also high quality individuals and those that have a heart and care about their community, there's something incredibly powerful, that happens. And that's the kind of environment. We have zero turnover on our staff. I mean, we've got a great staff, and everyone just loves their job because they get to work in such a vital community of leaders and organization and do significant work. So anyway, that also is a key issue of looking at the quality of the leader of any organization you work with. You'll even if you stay a few years, you will learn a lot just by being in that culture. And if you get a leader that really cultivates a corporate culture that is honoring of individuals, that is nurturing, that doesn't look like individuals as tools but as assets, and actually have a set of policies around that, encourage engagement, encourage community engagement. That is a very special workplace, and there's lots of them in Orange County. So a lot of opportunities.
Yes, that's wonderful. Mark, before we kind of close here, is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation before we tell our audience how to get in touch with you?
Um, I think we're at a very interesting place as a society and as a county. And I have a sense of, and my colleagues have a sense of urgency about the future of this county and the implication for so many hundreds and thousands and even millions of people, families, communities here in Orange County. But we really have a chance to. Orange County is an incredible place, as we all know. I mean, it is, and I feel like we're such a young community. I mean, UCI, is just celebrating their 60th anniversary. That was kind of the foundation of, kind of the epicenter of Orange County development from a bedroom community and farming community to a modern economy. And that was only 60 years ago. I mean, sometimes I feel like we're just clearing our throat. There's so much potential in Orange County, but without intentionality on the part of leaders in the community to come around a common vision for the county, I think we do have a chance of falling short of what our potential could be. And this now, in terms of international competition and all the issues, aerospace and defense, Anduril is coming here. There's a whole sector of the economy that will be built up around national security and defense. There's a lot at stake, whether we get this right. So anyway, it's a very, and there should be a sense of urgency, because if we don't come together as a community, I think we could miss this opportunity, because I think the decision is really going to be made in the next 5 to 10 years of which way we'll go. And every other region we're looking at, they are moving, full bore in a direction of innovation, in higher paying jobs, economic growth, investing in their youth. So it's wonderful for America, but the bar is set very high if Orange County is going to be a leading region. So I think that's probably the last thing I would share.
Wonderful. Well, for our folks, this has been a wonderful conversation. This Mark Percy from CLA-OC, and that stands for CEO Leadership Alliance, Orange County. Mark, it's been a delightful conversation. I am sure that you've piqued the interest of a few of our listeners. If they want to get in touch with you or want to get in touch with the organization, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, my email address personal is mpercy at CLA-OC.org, and also 949-338-5407 is my cell. So happy to any reactions and feedback, and I'm out there a lot in the community and meeting new people. So if I don't hear from you, I look forward to, if you're a listener, just meeting you in the future as our paths cross.
Wonderful. Well, Mark, thank you for so much for being on the Power of Integrity podcast. You are certainly an example of where leadership aligns with principles, and our audience has really been blessed by the conversation today, and I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Ralph, and thanks for everything you're doing in terms of this topic, and thanks for our friendship.
Absolutely. It's been a delightful friendship and a delightful journey. We'll talk soon, my friend. Take good care, and bye for now.
The information presented in this program is provided for informational purposes only. The information is believed to be reliable, but no guarantee of accuracy is made or implied. Expressions of opinions are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult a legal or tax professional if investing involves risks, including possible loss of capital. Ralph Adamo is registered with the securities and are offered through COVAC Securities, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, 6451 North Federal Highway, Suite 1201, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33308. Telephone number 954-782-4771. Investment advisory services are offered through COVAC Advisors, Inc. Integrity Wealth Management is not affiliated with COVAC Securities, Inc. or COVAC Advisors, Inc.